Hello and welcome to the Center for LGBTQ and Gender Studies in Religion here at Pacific School of Religion in Berkeley, California. My name is Bernie Schlager and I use he, they pronouns. Our program today is the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, ruining it for everyone since 1979. Before I introduce our program more fully and our speakers, let me just inform you that this event is being recorded and will be posted on our socials later. We will not record, nor will we post the chat feature. So again, welcome to CLGS. The title of today's Lavender Lunch, again, is The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, ruining it for everyone since 1979. Since their founding in San Francisco in that year, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence have used drag, camp, public joy, and irreverent spirituality as tools for service, protest, and radical care. What began as a small group of queer men in habits has grown into a global order of activist nuns committed to expiating stigmatic guilt and spreading universal joy. In today's Lavender Lunch, Sister Heresy's Candy and Sister Mary Media will offer us an introduction to the history of the sisters, situating the order within queer religious resistance, AIDS-era mutual aid, and contemporary movements for LGBTQ+ justice. This presentation will explore how humor, spectacle, and devotion operate together as serious spiritual and political practice. The conversation will then shift to the lived experiences of individual sisters, focusing on the concept of calling, vocation, and the diverse range of ministries in which sisters engage today. These include street outreach, fundraising for grassroots organizations, public ritual, grief work, education, and presence in moments of both celebration and crisis. This event invites you as participants to consider what happens when queerness, faith, and service refuse respectability, and why the sisters continue to be both beloved and controversial more than 4 decades since their founding in 1979. Our two presenters today are Sister Heresy's Candy and Sister Mary Media. We're also fortunate to have a number of sisters in the room, so welcome to everyone, including those sisters. Sister Heresy's Candy is a fundraising professional, longtime community advocate, and current abbess of the San Francisco House of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Involved with the order since 2012, her ministry weaves joy, humor, and service, drawing inspiration from sacred clowns, queer spirituality, and drag as spiritual functionary. Sister Hera has served as the first Mistress of Prides, chaired 3 Project Nunways, including one Bay Area Reporter Bestie Award winner, completed 2 board terms, stewarded the nuns of the above records, led Dia de los Muertos altars, delivered community blessings, and supported a wide range of fundraising and service ministries. Professionally, she works in higher education in fundraising, development, and alum relations, bringing training in fine arts, psychology, and spiritual guidance to her work with a focus on listening, empowerment, and queer joy as resistance and care. She lives in San Francisco with her husband, Mr. Sister Rock Candy. Welcome, Sister Heresy's Candy. And Sister Mary Media was one of the original members when the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence was founded as an order in 1979. Finding a group of gay men who shared her interest in and commitment to queerness as a spiritual calling and an opportunity for self-discovery and growth proved to be a life-changing experience. In the early years, she served as Mistress of Communication, which gave rise to her sisterly name. However, the toll of caring for dying friends in the early AIDS of the AIDS pandemic, as well as the departure of sisters she was closest to in the order, led her to step away from active participation in the group, a situation she remedied by rejoining the order in 2014. Since then, she has served several years as Mistress of Grants and is currently a member of the Order's Board of Directors, serving as Mistress of the SPI archives, a position to which she feels a passionate commitment. So welcome again, everyone. We're pleased to have you here, and I will turn this over to the sisters.
Thank you so much, Bernie. It sounds like a group I'd like to be involved with. Um, I I'll focus first on the history of the sisters and how this group of crazies came together. Um, Let me just share my screen here. So I didn't set out to be a sister. I was in high school. I was pretty much a nerd and found my community like many disaffected high school students in the theater and worked on productions backstage mostly. So theater was definitely one of the interests that shaped my activism. So 1979, this photo was taken on the day that we now recognize as the birth of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Three men put on these habits that one of them, the one at the top, Sister Vicious Power Hungry Bitch, brought with her from Iowa when she moved to San Francisco. They were She claims they were bored one day and so decided to put on these the habits and go out and see what happened, and that the reaction was explosive. Like people immediately recognized something in these men dressed as nuns. So this photo was taken at Land's End in 1979 on Easter Saturday, Holy Saturday on Easter weekend, and now regarded as the birth of our order. However, my own perspective is that the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, not just some men dressed in drag as nuns, but an order, a spiritual order of people connected to each other through spirit. Um, I believe uh, that founding took place at the spiritual conference for radical fairies that was organized by queer activist Harry Hay, that took place on Labor Day weekend, so about 4 months after that first initial appearance. Um, this was took place in Arizona in the desert, and it brought together men who um, didn't know how to think of themselves at the time, but the term fairy applied to them, and it stuck. It was people who did not fit into what was then the overriding style of being a gay man in San Francisco, which was the Castro clone. Um, and so these were people who felt that they did not fit into that sort of hyper masculine um, culture that was predominant in gay queer culture. So when some of us who were at that gathering came back to San Francisco, we tried to figure out how do we take this realization, this new experience of being a queer person, how do we take this out into the community and reflect it? And well, uh, one of the people said, well, some of us have been doing drag, putting on these nuns habits and going out into the community and getting really good reaction. How about, we could form an order? And so that is when the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence came into being that fall of 1979. And this photo is from our first photo session, which at what is now the Harvey Milk the Harvey Milk Center in DuBose Park. We printed up holy cards and went out into the community and passed them out. And that was an opportunity for us to discuss who we were and what our mission was. We put out some postcards. Photographers loved taking photos of us, and we wanted to present a different way of being queer in San Francisco. Um, a couple of years later, two of the members of our order who were registered nurses felt that there was a crisis, a health crisis going on in the community that the sisters should try to address. So for our participation in the gay, or the Lesbian Gay Freedom Day, as it was called back then, in 1982, we decided that we would have a war on VD as our participation in that Pride parade. And so we did a photo shoot to get a cover for a brochure that would outline um, the diseases that were going on in the community in the language that people were using to talk about the diseases, instead of clinical and judgmental language that a lot of health um, bulletins were using at the time. So we came up with the Playfair pamphlet, um, and it was an immediate success because we used humor, we used our role as sacred clowns to address what was not being addressed. One of those nurses who organized um, that war on VD was Bobby Campbell, seen here, Sister Florence Nightmare RN. He was the AIDS poster boy and did a lot of activism around AIDS in the early days. Um, we let's see. This kind of reflects our uh, one of the rituals that we engaged in up on Buena Vista. The sisters did embrace ritual, and we would meditate together, but we would also hold rituals, um, celebrating full moons and celebrating the energy of the goddess. We had a exorcism of in Union Square in 1984 to uh, rid the city of the spirit of um, uh, Phyllis Schlafly and other fundamentalists who were attacking the queer community in San Francisco. We've put on a dog show. We had some fun events. We put on a dog show. Here's Sister Boom Boom interviewing one of the contestants, and the judge there is Sylvester, who uh, helped us with the event. And since the early days where we were all cast, basically a version of clones, we were the alternate version to the Castro clone. We all looked the same um, in the early days, but now we have a much broader interpretation of what a nun's habit should be. Um, One of the people, the habit that I'm wearing today was actually created by the person in the middle here, who is Sister Chanel number 2001. He was Gilbert Baker, who you may also know was the creator of the rainbow flag. Um, we work with artists who use who kind of situate us in the art world and reimagine art through the filter of the sisters. We are a worldwide order now. Here's a sister from Paris, Sister Panam. We did performances. This was Mary Media and the Cassettes at an early Castro Street Fair. We have our annual celebration of the founding on Easter weekend. Um, And the main event is the Hunky Jesus contest, which many of you may have been to. We have a Project Nunway. We have a nun fashion show where we reimagine sisterly habits. We help put out. We help with organizations to put out their message and do education. Even the city ha used us during the COVID pandemic to try to get people to wear masks. We raised money. One of the ways we raised money was during COVID, since we couldn't have hold events, was Finch, the artist Finch, created a sister nun and raised $35,000, I believe, through sales of those images. And we raise money for marginal organizations. So here's a thank you note we got from a student who is part of a group called YAS, Youth Aspiring to something to anyway, they were aspiring drag queens at a high school in the South Bay, and we sent them money for to buy makeup. Um, and we got this thank you note that said that from a student who said, "Thank you so much. Before we had the makeup, my my face looked like a bowl of oatmeal. Now it looks like a fierce bowl of oatmeal." And so our looks have exploded. We're now a very large order of um, sisters who reflect all aspects of our community. So that's it for a quick survey of who the sisters are and what we've been doing since 1979. Hera.
Thank you, Sister Mary Media. Before we get started with the personal portion of the talk, I wanted to show one more thing. Sister Mary Media alluded to our Easter celebration, which includes the infamous Hunky Jesus contest. Hunky Jesus is now a documentary that will be premiering at the British Film Institute's Flair weekend next month. It is the headlining feature film of the festival. And so I'd love to share the trailer for the documentary, and hopefully it doesn't scandalize people too much.
What is Hunky Jesus?
What is Hunky Jesus? Do you live under a rock? It's an irreverent beauty contest and fashion show.
If Jesus was hunky, what would he look like?
We need to ask all potential contestants for Foxy Mary and Hunky Jesus to please report to the back of the stage.
And let's not forget that without Foxy Mary, there would be no Hunky Jesus.
Foxy Mary, Hunky Jesus, you know, you can't say that without smiling.
I accidentally ended up with the Hunky Jesus and, you know, I survived.
What I'm about to show you folks may be shocking to some audiences. This is an example of a show that these trans nuns do in front of audiences, sexualizing and mocking the crucifixion of Jesus Christ.
Quite often, people are rejected not only by the church, but by their friends and their family.
So our job is to expiate stigmatic guilt, spread universal joy, let people know you are loved, you are good.
Easter in the Park and Hunky Jesus symbolizes that for so many people. It's such a pie in the face to all the people who tried to oppress you and tell you that you were wrong. It's very healthy. The audience makes the final selection because the responsibilities of Hunky Jesus are absolutely none.
There we go. Coming soon to a theater near you. Something Sister Roma said in that presentation about so many queer people growing up I'm paraphrasing, growing up in environments that where they're actively hated or shunned from their families or disowned from their families, right? And so celebrating something that is just full on queer and full on about joy, and not hung up in dogma or this is right and this is wrong, is resistance. And I think that's what we, as our sisters, over time can be distilled into a strong message, is that we joyfully resist, and continue to do so. And that form, that joyful resistance takes different forms depending on the event, depending on the organization we're working with, depending on what's going on in the world at any given moment. So at this point, we wanted to, myself and Sister Mary Media, and there's some sisters in the audience as well, to share a little bit about our calling and like why this, right? Like there's all sorts of ways to serve one's community. Why this way? For me, I have always been probably what would be considered non-binary. I always wanted, the minute my parents left me alone, I was in my mother's high heel shoes. I would turn a t-shirt inside out and make that my hair. Little did I know, really, I was making a veil back in the day. So I've always wanted to have access to gender expression of all forms, not just to the body that I was born in, but I wanted to be pretty. Flash forward through, and I started to understand my sexuality in the late 80s into the early 90s, in the midst of the AIDS epidemic. And so that featured in how I came out. I found myself in love with a straight man for about 10 years, which kind of took me out of the gay scene. And when I came back to it through my graduate school work, in graduate school, I was exposed to many different kinds of thoughts and ideas from around the world about what we think of as queer people who are sexually and gender variant. And it turns out that not everywhere around the world sees us as abominations. There are people and places around the world and throughout time that have seen that we have gifts, that we have a purpose, that we're here for a reason and not just something that went wrong. And as somebody who always had in my head that I was wrong for being who I am, knowing that wasn't the only option was very liberating. And so through my graduate research, I started to become exposed to the idea of a divine androgen, and that the divine can look like a melange, a mix of different genders and sexualities and all of the aboves. And about the same time that I was rediscovering that, or not rediscovering it, but discovering it and finding my inner faggotry, so to speak, I was exposed to the sisters for the first time. And it was at Easter. And it was like this. I think this is how I'm supposed to do what I do in the world. And it took me a while to follow that call and to work through my sisterhood. And now for me, as sisters, we take a number of vows. There's an initiation process. Unlike most volunteer organizations, there's an initiation process. And as I was in my initiation, had to think about these vows I was going to eventually be taking with my sisters. And the vows are, a series of things, but there's two main sets of vows that are pretty universal to all of our different orders throughout the world. And one is that, and you heard it in the Hunky Jesus trailer, we work on expiating stigmatic guilt. And so meaning stigmatic guilt, meaning guilt about who you are, or some label that is immutable about yourself, right? Like it could be a chronic illness, it could be your sexuality, it could be anything, but it's something kind of inherent to who you are that people are made to feel guilty around, or less than from, or take a stigma around. So it's one of the things we vow to do, is help remove stigmatic guilt in the world. And the other is to spread universal joy. And that is up to definition about what joy is for people. Certainly the joking, irreverent, heretical side of us, I think, is spreading joy. For me, it also includes removing barriers to joy. So if people are experiencing hardships in their lives or situations in which it's harder to find joy, I believe it's part of my mission and the Order's mission to help remove those things, often going hand in hand with stigmatic things. So I take those two vows very seriously, and through time, I've learned to be stronger in the mission of the sisters. I'm recently abbess of our order, and that has deepened my experience of being a sister. I'm suddenly, not suddenly, but I now have to think about all of my sisters when I'm thinking about ministry and mission and who and what we are being and doing in the world. I think that's enough about me for now. Sister Mary Media, do you want to share your calling? You did in your presentation a little bit already, but
yes, I think well, for one thing, we found a I mean, for me, it was finding a family. It was finding my group of people. And I think actually in the early days of when San Francisco was populated by people who had moved here and were maybe isolated, the sisters modeled a kind of community, a group, and it was something that people could relate to. It wasn't about individuality. It was that came a little later with the explosion of different styles of being a sister, but it was about being part of a group and being and not accepting the attacks that were being rained on the queer community at the time by fundamentalist Christians, the Anita Bryants and the Jerry Falwells and of the world. I think people really understood on a deep level that, yeah, there's different ways of being a good person in the world, and I don't have to follow religious orthodoxy in order to be a great person. And so I think the sisters modeled that. So that's our function as sacred clowns, I think, is what really is the center of the calling for me. It's like puncturing orthodoxy and hypocrisy and judgmentalism towards other people.
yeah, and I think I'll add a little bit to that too. Is I used the word faggotry earlier because it again is like sometimes a distasteful word to have in one's mouth. But being a sister, partly for me is about honing that, right? Instead of instead of being respectable, instead of being in a suit and tie and trying to assimilate, this is actually leaning into queerness. This is leaning into being different and honing that, right? Not like this is like graduate level queerness, right? So leaning into that and pushing that boundary both in myself, but then also in the people that observe me.
And activism doesn't have to be hostile and aggressive. And, I mean, some fundamentalist Christians used to come into the Castro in the early days, and they would sing their hymns and denounce us as sinners, denounce the community as sinners. And so the sisters, one of the first things that we did after we were formed was go out and confront these people, but we confronted them by bringing a boombox and playing music and dancing and showing, exhibiting, basically just affirming our space, our way of life, and without, being hostile to them.
I'm curious, we have a number of sisters on the call as well on the meeting. I wonder if any of these sisters would like to share their calling. Raise your hands. Don't make me call on you.
I can go ahead and do it. My name is Sister Tainta Virgin. I have been a sister for just about 15 years now. And I came into the group being extremely introverted, but passionate about kind of the activism work. I came out as a teenager and got really involved with kind of LGBT queer rights. Was not raised religious in any capacity, but very spiritual. And so I was magnetized by the sisters, but also terrified with kind of being the center of attention and kind of bringing a spotlight to myself. And so for me, I saw what they were doing from kind of the activism standpoint as something that brought joy to myself, but also what I wanted to kind of give back into the community. And I was heavily involved with sexual health education, working for the public health department and some other local nonprofit organizations. And so saw what Sister Mary Media shared was the Play Fair, kind of using humor and wit to kind of bring in education and bring in this joyful spirit of what we do. And so for me, that's kind of was my initial seed into the group. Since becoming a sister, I've really kind of leaned into the development of that persona and that identity. And in taking the name that I did, it kind of infuses people with a laugh, but also kind of an invitation to kind of use words and specifically phrases that are kind of a little taboo at times in more kind of jovial ways. And so for me, that still is the connective thread to what I do, and have been leaning very heavily into kind of offering blessings more recently. And I find that that's a way of kind of being able to put words into action, celebrate the community that we're taking our vows to, and really just kind of bring in a spotlight into areas, into organizations, into people who aren't as always highlighted for the incredible work that they're doing.
Thank you, sister. Any other sisters on the list would like to share about their calling?
Yeah, I'll go. I'm Sister Zsa Glamour. I joined in 1991, so it's going on 35 years. I'm 70, so in a few months it will be half my life as a sister. I joined, unlike a lot of other sisters that have, a spiritual calling or a need to do things, for the community. I, joined simply because I, saw it as a group of people that were a lot of fun and did things, and I wanted to make friends, and and do things that friends do, and and in a big way. And I mostly participate with the things that are like, excuse me, in the line of event production. And internally in the sisters, we dismiss, we a lot of times dismiss, how powerful we are at producing events like Easter. We did, we used to do the, the unofficial, official Halloween party every year in the Castro. We used to do Pink Saturday. Those are huge undertakings that that nobody has been able to, to replicate since, because, we had to invent how to do that. So that's, there's a misconception by some people that we all live together in a convent and we go out on adventures like the monkeys. But actually no, people want to know, well, I want to, we've had a lot of we've had other documentary offers, and they say, well, we want to see what you do on a daily basis. Well, it's kind of boring because most of what we do is either on the phone or in front of our computer, you know. So, but the part about having a family situation, a group of friends that do projects together and do things socially. That's my reason for joining. Um, I have I understand that this is somewhat involved. This Zoom call is about religion. I believe. Um, you know, I you know I you know I'm I remember disbelieving in, we used to go to Lutheran church every week, and I remember thinking of it the same way I thought about, at about the same time I no longer believed in Santa Claus. Is about the same time I no longer believed in Christianity. So it's been that long, and I'm still getting along. Um, but that's my take on that. And we allow for all kinds of religious expressions in the group. But that's not our main thing, and neither is it the opposite. Neither is it that our main goal is to destroy religion. It is what it is.
Thank you, sister. Any other sisters would like to share? Sister Chappie, I'm looking at you.
I think so. I would be the baby of the group then, because I've only been a sister for about 3 years. And I think I was introduced to the sisters when I worked for a local AIDS agency back when I was in high school 25 years ago. And it just fascinated me. Wanting to give back to the community is something that has always been very fulfilling to me. I myself was raised similar to Taint in the fact that there was no like formal religion in the house. I was always just kind of told I could go to church with any of my friends and just be respectful, be kind, dress nice, be on your best behavior. And I've kind of just carried that throughout life, that mentality when I meet other people, to just be respectful, and everyone's going to have their own belief system. It may or may not be similar to my own. And so when I go out as a sister in the community, I really try to just go with an open heart and an open mind with everyone that I meet and that I encounter. And my ministry has very much been about serving those in need and those who are less fortunate than myself. And I, as an adult, was brought into the sisters at a time in life that was very challenging, and I don't currently really have any biological family left. And so the sisters, near and far, have become very much my adopted family that I enjoy being around, in face, out of face, within community, in quiet spaces. I just find it to be so fulfilling in every way, no matter what activity we're doing, and really being able to relish what brought all of us together.
Thank you, sister.
I'd like to just address the rooting it for everyone slogan. That's kind of a half unofficial, half official slogan of the sisters. And I think that what it means, that slogan means to me, is the idea that we should not, as queer people, try to fit into the mainstream society and to the gender roles and to the sort of moral and ethical roles that have been laid out by authorities. I think that we should find our own form of expression, find out who our authentic selves are, and live up to that. Don't try to be respectable enough to, get our, to win our rights, but be confident in who we are and what we have to offer as being better than what is being imposed on us.
Yeah.
Better for us, not in any kind of dispassionate sense, but better for us, be who you are. And that's our message. I mean, I think when people see us out in the streets, it's like that the message is right there. Here's somebody who's being who they are, They're not trying to fit in.
Yeah, I think that too. Like, we're kind of this extreme example of how one can present themselves. And I think by existing and thriving and joyfully existing, we give permission to other people to find themselves, maybe not where we're at, but somewhere further along than they thought was possible before.
Or further out than us.
Or further out than us. That exists, yes.
There was a phrase in the 70s, I believe, or I heard it in the 70s, that a lot of people use, that I grew up to be one of the people that my parents warned me against. So I look at the same way as, that phrase as well as ruining it for everyone is more of a satire, more of an irony.
Right.
When we're actually, busting our ass all the time.
Well, that's the interesting space that the sisters inhabit, right? We are a parody of the thing, and we are the thing. We are nuns. We do what nuns do. Nuns educate people, we educate people. Nuns raise money for the poor, we raise money for the poor. Nuns comfort the afflicted, we comfort the afflicted. Nuns take a vow of poverty, of chastity, we raise money for the poor.
Well, so a question for our hosts: Did you come up with that phrase that you wanted clarity on, or how did that come up? Because we were discussing it on the email last night. Like, where did that phrase first come from? And we're not really sure. But how did that land in this Zoom call?
It's because I used it as the subtitle of
Oh, okay.
because I personally love that phrase, because I think it encapsulates what we do perfectly. As being in a liminal space where sometimes we are both hated by mainstream society, but we're also hated by our own sub society sometimes, because we're not doing the thing that they think we should be doing in order to get more rights, to get more, what have you. It's the anti-establishment, anti-essentialism, anti-assimilation stance, which I think completely aligns us up with sacred clowning and contrarians and what have you. And as Mary Media said too, but then it's also like, we are also the thing that we're parroting, right? Like, it is not just parody. It's not just performance. We are actually out there doing it, and, making a difference in people's lives. Like, it's important work. Lots of societies have had sacred clowns of some kind to hold mirrors back to their societies. And I kind of think that North American culture, Western civilization, helped invent us to fill that niche void in our culture. We also jokingly suggest that anybody who's familiar with the Dune series of books, like, we're the Bene Gesserit, right? Like 30,000 years in the future, we're the Bene Gesserit. So, yeah. I'm wondering if now it's time to open up if there's questions or people have thoughts about what we do or anything like that.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Heresy. So feel free to unmute yourself. We always love seeing your faces. So if you have a question, please show yourself if you're comfortable doing that, or you can put it in the chat box and I can read it out. One thing I wanted to say is one of my gigs at the seminary is teaching church history, and there's this wonderful tradition that goes back to the medieval church until it was outlawed, was something called Feast of Fools. And already in the 13th century, on January 1st, in many parts of Western Europe, there would be a day where rules were relaxed. People would come into the church, they'd often elect a child to be the bishop, they would dress that child up, and they'd go parading up and down the sanctuary. They would make a parody of the Mass and do that. It was kind of, people saw it as an outlet, right, in a very repressed society. So it's interesting, that's over 1,000 years ago, that there are many traditions, right? You're making reference to sacred clowns. And so that's something that came to my mind. So a very, very long tradition. Anyone have a question or comment from the Zoom room?
Who hates us? Who thinks we are ruining it for everyone?
Go ahead, Logan, please.
I just think it's funny that you asked that right as I raised my hand, because that is not why I raised my hand.
Fake
and the reason it took me again is because I'm trying to figure out how to formulate this into a question. But the thing that I'm playing with in my mind right now is basically just also the rich Christian tradition of subversive, creative subversive action, public subversive action, especially to subvert, cultural norms and authority that oppresses rather than lifts up. And there's biblical precedent for that. Palm Sunday is an act of political theater and was subversive. And I think I am in a Doctor of Ministry program right now working on kind of the idea of what lessons can be learned from the community of polyamory and ethical non-monogamy to help us decolonize Christianity today. And I'm just so interested in the role of sex and sexuality and gender expression in that kind of cause, because for so long control of bodies has been kind of a frontline tool of oppression in the Christian church. And you are doing this joyful, subversive, beautiful, like, it's so, I want to say it's wholesome even, like this this bucking of those forces of oppression and bodily control in such a beautiful way. And so I guess one of the things I want to say is thanks. And the other thing I want to say is I guess the question, again, this is why I was trying to formulate it ahead of time, but the question is, what do you, I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit more on the specific need for religious language around this project, religious imagery, this parody.
It's a great question.
It's kind of open-ended.
Yeah, I think each sister would probably have their own answer to that, right? And it kind of keys a little bit into me of sometimes, well, people think we are making fun of religion, and I suppose some sisters, that is their take on it as well. Like for me, it's this is religious. This is my ministry. This is how this has come to be. And we sometimes get accused, especially around Hunky Jesus, sometimes we get accused of, well, why don't you do hunky Muhammad, right? Like, and that's always paired with because you would get killed, right? Like, that's sort of the subtle underneath of that. And when I think about that question, this is the prevailing religious theme of our culture, right? Is Christianity. And when you think of high religious iconic art, it's Catholicism, right? Like that's got the iconic religious imagery going for it. So I think we have adopted this look somewhat on accident, based on our founding, of these bored men walking out on Easter Saturday in the habits. So kind of accidentally, the lore is also that they had cheerleader outfits to choose from, and then they opted for the habits versus the cheerleader outfits. So I think I'm grateful for that. But I do think it ties into this is the culture that we're immersed in, right? And so that's the imagery that we have to work with, whether or not we think about it as personally meaningful, the symbology. Like I didn't grow up Catholic, and I'm a big nature person now, but this just works for some reason, and it demands attention. So it's kind of, I don't know if that answered any of that questions, but for me, that's what it is.
I'll read two things from the chat. One is from Reverend Yolanda. I'm a native of San Francisco, born in 1962. My great grandmother used to take me and my sister to the Gay Freedom Day parades on Polk Street. It's so wonderful to see you all now that I'm living in North Carolina. Thank you, Reverend Yolanda. And then a follow-up from Logan. I also wonder if you have any ordained clergy currently involved in the Sisters.
Well, if you include the, sign up to be a minister online, yeah, a lot of us have that. Now, I belong to something called the Church of the Pedestrian something or other. I think I was the only member. But I'm curious why she would ask that.
Why not?
Partially because I know a lot of people who are ordained clergy who would be so about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure talking to a sister, a nun who, a retired Catholic nun who was thinking about joining, but that hasn't happened yet. I can't think of anybody in the order itself who has been ordained, but some of our saints and some of the people that we work very closely with, like John Brett and are ordained religious figures.
Oh, and also right after same-sex marriage was approved, we created a separate organization called Perpetual Indulgence Missionary of Presence. The acronym was PIMP. And we actually went through the steps to create a religious order that we could legally do marriages in the state of California. So it required, it took a lot of paperwork and a lot of, bureaucracy to do that. But we were ordained to do weddings, funerals, baptisms, and all that. It just got, the paperwork got too much, and we didn't renew it. But we have been, I have a certificate that's that I was ordained.
Yeah, and I think there are I can think of a few people who are ordained in different denominations of like old Catholic, like the kind of fringier versions of some of the religions that are out there, some of the choices that are out there. I think there are a few of us that are there as well.
We have some ordained Buddhists. I mean, actually, some, yeah. a couple of ordained Buddhists in our order.
I had a question about how you decide which nonprofits to support, and one reason that comes to mind is the center applied for a grant a number of years ago in the $500 to $700 range, and we awarded a grant of $666, which was we used that for many years to show the depth and width of our support, and it's such a great number. But it has biblical reference, or some people believe it does. Sign of the beast. I'm curious to know how you vet that, and who comes to you in addition to the center for financial and other support in the work that they do in the world.
Well, I was mistress of grants for a while, so I guess I could answer that. We invite applications. We have 2 grant cycles a year now. And we invite people to apply. A committee of the sisters goes through the applications and basically rates them all. Each individual sister applies a score to the applications, and then it's usually pretty clear from that which groups are going to get supported, and then it becomes a matter of discussing in more depth the kind of things that we want to support and make sure that there's a balance between artistic projects and direct service projects and things like that. We look for the innovative. We look for it. It helps us. I mean, we're kind of biased for people who apply who are not likely to get funded elsewhere, who are either just starting out, they have an innovative idea, they don't have a track record. So mainstream funders would basically not take a chance on them. But we're willing to take a chance on people who have an innovative idea and just need a little bit of scratch to start the ball rolling. We look for people who are in remote areas of the country who are also unlikely to find funding sources in their own communities. And so those are the kind of we're trying to pay attention to who's neglected in the fundraising world. And that's basically what our bias is.
Thank you.
One of my favorite grant recipients, this is a number of years ago, but it was a nursing class at a Catholic university, and they were specifically wanting a course in care for LGBTQ plus people, and the university refused to offer that. And so they came to us for a grant to pay an instructor so that they could have their own course outside of their school and have that paid for. And I just thought that totally exemplified what we're looking for from allies and from our community, is that kind of innovation and forward thinking.
That's great. We have a question in the chat from Jen. Have the sisters faced serious organized opposition? How has that presented, and how have you dealt with it?
Not counting the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church tried to get opposed us getting permits to hold our anniversary celebration on Castro Street. And we got around that by having cultivated relationships with people in city government, like Harry Britt, who went to bat for us at the Board of Supervisors.
It was actually Mark Leno.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So for
I know Harry Britt did. I mean, also went to bat for us on something else, maybe not for that
Yeah.
particular
Well,
anniversary.
for the 20th anniversary, we had a permit to do Easter on Castro Street, and then the Catholic Church found out about it, and the Catholic League, Bill Donahue, jumped on it and coerced the archdiocese to oppose to raise a stink and oppose it and try to get the Board of Supervisors to rescind our permit. And it turned into a whole big thing. They had to reschedule a Board of Supervisors meeting to a larger room because they couldn't accommodate all the busloads of people that the Catholic Church unloaded from nursing homes to show, to present a show of force. And it was even broadcast on the government cable channel. And then we also did a demonstration when the current archbishop was installed, and they were ready for us that time. They cordoned off all of the block surrounding St. Maytag there, and they had mariachi bands playing as loud as they could so that they drowned out any kind of protesters there. But we still were out there. We still got on the news, and made our point. And then there was a time when the archbishop was coming to the local parish in the Castro, and some right-wing Catholic activists saw that two of our sisters were taking communion in habit and objected to that, and that caused a whole big stink. And and they were more upset about the archbishop giving communion to the sisters than the sisters being there. So we've been and then also we had gone through a whole we wanted to do bingo at Most Holy Redeemer in the Castro, and they wanted us really badly, and we had to go through a lot of steps to get bingo approved because we were giving cash payouts. So we had to get all kinds of permits and inspections and things like that. Cost us money to do it. And then when we announced that we were going to start doing bingo at Most Holy Redeemer, the Archbishop said, no, you either cancel the sisters, or we're going to disavow you as part of the San Francisco Archdiocese. So they were forced to cancel bingo there. And
you may have heard also of the incident in LA, in Los Angeles, when the Dodgers wanted to honor the Los Angeles sisters for their work in the community. And I think it was Marco Rubio who started things by saying, why are the Dodgers honoring these horrible people? And so the Dodgers, rescinded the invitation to the sisters to be honored on their LGBTQ day, but it blew up in their face because the other recipients that day just said, if the sisters aren't welcome, then we're not welcome either, and we're not going to show. So the Dodgers, to their credit, changed their mind again and re-invited the sisters and went ahead with honoring the sisters for their work in raising money for organizations in Los Angeles. So, and it ended up to the benefit of the sisters in that case, because they got so many donations of cash from people who just wanted to express their opposition to what had happened, that they ended up raising a lot of money to give away to needy organizations.
Great. We have time for one more comment or question. Let me just read something in the chat from Burke. Thank you, Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Your work and mission to bring acceptance and humor to the San Francisco Bay has proved to me that God loves us no matter who or what or where we are or how we got here. Bless you and keep up the good work. And a thank you from Jen in the chat. Any other comments or questions before we sign off?
I'd like to bring something, which is something I just learned while we've been in this meeting today. That one of our very, very long-term sisters, Miss Mary Media can speak to her. Sister Frida Peoples has passed away. We're just learning that today while in this meeting. So we'd like to, send good thoughts for her on her journey to what's ever next for her, for sure.
I don't know that she was ever ordained, but I know she spent many years in seminary in Rome and other places.
One final question or comment. I'm sorry, Sister Mary, go ahead.
No. I was.
If a person is interested in joining,
yes.
How does one do that?
Sister Taint, are you still here?
Sister Taint is our mistress of novices.
Okay.
Reach out. I mean, we have a website, thesisters.org. I would express interest to Taint, Sister Taint, the mistress of novices. But basically, come to our events and make yourself known to to people, and see for sure that this is something that you want to do, and then that would initiate a process that can take from 1 to 2 years of different stages of being an aspirant and postulant. Thank you, and then novice, and until you become a black veil, what we call a black veil, a fully professed sister, which is marked by taking vows in front of the whole order, and you're basically marrying the group.
Well, thank you, Sister Heresy's Candy, Sister Mary Media, Sister Jaja Glamour, Sister, I think we had some other sisters on, so thank you very much. I invite you to check out our website for our programming. Our next program will be Transbiblical, a group of writers who have published a book on trans interpretation of Scripture, and that will be on March 10th. And once again, thank you, sisters, for the work that you do. Thank you for being here, and
thank you for the work you do.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank everybody for your interest.
Yeah. Happy Lent, happy Easter.
Yes.
We look forward to the next incarnation of Hunky Jesus.
Yes, Dolores Park, April 4th.
Okay.
April 4th.
Yep.
And Foxy
April 5th. April 5th.
Okay. Thanks so much, everyone.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Take care.